Good afternoon from Lambeth, July 26th, Saturday. It's good to be with you. Today we started with Eucharist that was provided by the province of Australia, and then we went into Bible study. And our Bible studies have been an excellent place for us to grow together as the Anglican Communion and to learn from people who are living in many different contexts across the world.
I was particularly taken by the passionate homily we heard this morning at the Eucharist by Bishop Browning, calling for us to, in some incredibly passionate words, to take seriously the climate crisis and to, as bishops, take moral leadership in that regard. In our Bible studies, we were talking about the story of the man born blind and his sight being restored by Jesus. And we talked about all the ways in which, many ways in which our own blindness to the crisis of creation right now is causing us to lose a spiritual focus, and how we need to be healed of some of that blindness so that we might take moral action. We went into Indaba groups and spoke about, again, the theme of creation and the stewardship of creation. We focused on the Genesis 1 narrative, the creation narrative, and looked at the ways in which that narrative challenges us in our own context to address the issues of global climate change, and heard some incredibly powerful stories from bishops from other parts of the world speaking to us about things like the snow on Mount Kilimanjaro dissipating, the islands in the South Pacific being lost because of the rising sea level, the declining time of rainy season in many parts of the world. Those kinds of issues really bring home for me the interrelatedness of all creation and our interrelatedness with one another in this crisis.
Yeah, I would echo that in the Indaba groups it becomes clear, and in the Bible studies too, this is not an abstract idea. This is climate change is affecting the world. And what comes to me too is that it's a justice issue, because in fact the poor are the first that are going to pay for this, and in many parts of the world they already have paid, and in fact their lives have changed forever. There are some places where we probably cannot turn back the effects of climate change. And so this is a very real issue. Personally, I think it's one of the most pressing issues we have, and what we are called to focus on as bishops. So we were called on today in many ways from our brothers and sisters around the world, but also by Bishop Browning, of course, in the Eucharist this morning, and by Professor Rapley last night, who provided a great plenary session for us on explaining the science of global warming and climate change, asking us to take moral leadership in this and to speak about it and to not be fearful in doing that, because it is probably he called it the life-transforming challenge of our time, and I would agree with that as well.
This is an important issue for many of us in the church, and certainly for people in Vermont who are very focused on concerns for the environment. Our diocesan convention this November will have the theme of sustainability at its heart, with noted Vermonter Bill McKibben as our speaker, and our whole diocese is taking this to heart as one of the themes of our renewal for mission and ministry. So it's very, very timely for us to be hearing about these stories from other parts of the world, so that we can bring those back home to share and engage and feel like we're engaging globally in the issues of climate change.
Our diocesan convention is going to have the same theme. I was just recently asked to be on the climate action team for our state, Washington State, by the governor, and those are really becoming quite serious meetings. I mean, I really feel like legislation is going to change in Washington State, and they were very keen on having a faith member of that climate action team. And what I can tell you is that I don't feel like a token member of that team, but they were across the board, they felt it was important for the faith community to be represented. The other issue I think that's very important for us to be cognizant of, I've said it several times today, is that this is a win-win in many ways for evangelism as well, because the young people of our country, and I would say of the world, although I can't speak for the world, but I can certainly speak for the U.S. and for my area, the young people want to see us be involved and be a voice in this issue. They're concerned about it, and they want to see the church speak to it. And so, I think that that's a great thing for us. One of the other issues we've talked about is young people not being in our pews and not being part of our churches, and this is a topic and an issue that they're very concerned about and want to see us be involved in.
I would only add one other piece, and that's the centrality of the baptismal covenant for those of us in the Episcopal Church has one of the questions that the response to all of them is, I will with God's help. But in one of the questions, we're asked to respect the dignity of every human being. Many of us believe and are ready to expand that understanding to respect the dignity of all creation. Because in doing that, we in fact respect the dignity of every human being on the planet. And so we take that message very much to heart as part of our baptismal ministry.
Which brings us up to just this last hour where we had our official photo, which was a mystical act of engineering, is all I can say. It took about an hour to get us up there for about 10 minutes of photographs, but it was quite a sight, just as the opening Eucharist was, to see us all there together. And we sang, and I think we sounded very good.